Welcome to The Disruption Is Now. Join us on this enlightening journey as we explore how AI is impacting our jobs, careers, lives, and the human experience. Each episode, host Greg Matusky will converse with visionaries and innovators at the forefront of AI, diving into its challenges, opportunities, and impact. So buckle up as we venture into the heart of disruption, and together, let's unfold the future.
Well, welcome to another episode of The Disruption Is Now. I'm Greg Matusky, I'm your host, and it's the podcast where we talk about all things AI, especially how it impacts commerce, culture, and communications. And you know, I'm excited about our guest today because I gotta share a little secret. I've always had a sweet spot for logistics and supply chain. Part of it, when I was coming up, I worked for a couple logistics companies in public relations, but also because I always thought it was the unseen part of the global economy. And for decades, no one really knew what was going on. I'd be cruising down the Pennsylvania Turnpike with my wife, and there'd be all these trucks. And I'd say to my wife, that's the real American economy. You see that's inventory going by right now. And it's timed and it's measured, and it's the great equalizer for a lot of businesses in the world that no one knows about. And my guest comes from that same world. Karl Swensen is CEO and founder of PoolLogic, which is doing some really unique things with AI and agentic AI and agents in helping companies become more efficient in how they optimize demand generation, but also inventory flow and supply chain. Karl, thanks for being with us. Did I get that right?
I think you did. That was great. Great introduction, Greg. Appreciate it.
And so your background goes back. You studied a lot of this preparing for it in college at Georgia. Where did you study? Georgia
Tech, Georgia Institute of Technology. That's right.
Yeah. A school known for logistics and operational and engineering. So tell us a little bit about your journey. You've been at this now for how long?
Yeah, we started just over 3 years ago, Greg, the company PoolLogic. I was fortunate to be introduced to both Dr. Benoit Montreux, which is the brains or the behind everything we've done at PoolLogic in terms of our unique algorithms and how we look at inventory, as well as the other two co-founders. So we have four of us as co-founders that had started just about 3 years ago, the company. So it's been an exciting journey up to now.
And at that time, it was just the emergence that we saw with large language models. And was that part of the impetus, or is this something that predates that? Or
it actually predates that, but it's informed how we've built the product and how we've gone to market. So a little bit about Dr. Benoit. He leads the Supply Chain Logistics Institute at Georgia Tech. And he has, 40, 50 PhD students working under him. He consults with large companies, the large retail leaders, manufacturers. And so he's really seen everything in supply chain. And what we have done is taken his research around what's called product availability. It's a new way of looking at inventory based through the consumer lens, not through some 50-year-old formula that they've used up till now to manage inventory. And his first implementation that before we started the company got fantastic results for a manufacturer. So essentially, we decided to form a company based on his research, and that's how we've gone to market with that research is supporting us.
Go deeper on that, Karl. I want to learn a little bit about how it's through the lens of the customer, the ultimate user of a product or service or buyer. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so back 35 plus years ago when I studied inventory management control and demand forecasting, these concepts are over 50 years old, right? And essentially, they consider like each SKU as an island or by itself. So if you want to buy that red car, specific make, model, whatever, that's a SKU, right? And they look at min-max levels, they look at safety stock, cycle stock, but everything assumes like a SKU is an island, and they try to manage that effectively. What we've done, his research says that's not really how people shop and make decisions. People, let's say if I'm going to go buy that car, I may have certain preferences, features, functions, colors. Also, I may be willing to substitute, right? The black car isn't available. Maybe I'll take the dark blue one 80% of the time. The yellow car 10% of the time. So our algorithms understand people, the decisions people make, the willingness to substitute for certain features, functions, colors, and then how long they'll wait for inventory. Do they want the inventory right now? Do they want it 4 days from now? They want it 8 days from now? That has a big impact on how you deploy inventory, whether it's at a retail location or e-commerce facility or even manufacturing what you make. So hopefully that makes sense. So we try to align with that way of thinking with how the consumer make decisions.
And that leads to a great level of complexity, which I don't think the world really understands just how complex supply chain logistics, inventory optimization really is. It's, some of the most amazing technical algorithms ever developed are in this space.
Well, Greg, that's the beauty of Dr. Benoit's research is the PAR concept, the product availability readiness metric, as well as autonomy is the second one. But essentially, we encapsulate all those things I talked about, the preferences, substitution, how long the wait for inventory, into one metric, one score. We use that score to measure all inventory, the supply chain, every SKU, every location, every day. We're constantly updating it. And then, so one of our customers is a manufacturer of equipment. Their dealers, we actually will measure the PAR score. And then what is the PAR score for that dealer location? So let's say, for example, it's 82% PAR. What does that mean? That's product availability readiness. It's the probability that we're going to satisfy the next customer. So if the next customer walks in, we're always looking to the future, we're probabilistic. The next customer walks in, we have an 82% probability of satisfying them. So that's either we have the right product they're looking for in stock, we have a substitute that is acceptable to the customer, or the third thing, we have it in their time frame. So if we don't have it in stock, we can get to them in 2 days. That's acceptable. So that's how we measure effectiveness of inventory in all locations in the supply chain. It's a complex metric. You're right, it is but it's very simple to understand and implement and execute. I don't know, hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And that informs the entire enterprise then as what needs to be fulfilled, I imagine.
Yeah, and we've had conversations with, we're really focused, our solution works with both manufacturers and retailers. We're kind of getting more, most of our customers are manufacturers, right? And it's a simple way to communicate and metrics to measure the company versus all these other complicated metrics like fill rate, inventory turns. There's all these metrics. We just essentially distill it into the PAR metric, and autonomy is another one, which is a proxy for amount of inventory.
Now let's talk a little bit about agentive AI and AI agents, which is a big part of what you're doing. And it is the talk of the town when it comes to the AI community right now. And what agents will enable us all to do in our regular workflow. Give me your definition of what an agent is, an AI agent, if you would.
When we first started this, we didn't pitch the AI angle, but when people looked at us and said, "Hey, you guys are AI, right? So you should really talk that up." And I look at
so you're the opposite. Everybody else,
well, lots of times you talk to customers, they roll their eyes, they think, "Oh, ChatGPT, etc." Essentially, we are a narrowly focused AI. We're not like a large language model or general intelligence, which is the holy grail, right? So we're very much focused on solving, the demand issue, the inventory issue, et cetera. So I lost my train of thought.
Well, we were going into agents and how it's tuned for exactly what you do, the model.
Yeah, the definition of AI is where you take large sets of data and then you apply algorithms and either do the same or better job as a human could. So that's exactly what we do. Using our algorithms versus old approaches, we can implement in 4 to 5 weeks, 6 weeks. We can do this whole process with less people. You don't need these complicated systems that we see out there, the ERPs and the other inventory ordering systems. We can do it for a fraction of the cost and time and get better results. So, and the way we've architected this is this agentic approach where, we have a demand forecaster. We have we call it availability optimization. We're all about optimizing availability for the consumer. And then what inventory does that represent? And then we have other agents that we're developing in terms of trailer optimization. Let's order it, but optimize trailers in an efficient way and some other things. So hopefully, so we've got on the roadmap probably 7 or 8 agents right now that we're developing and have developed and are developing.
So these are like highly specialized professionals who can process information more quickly, and then they communicate it to one another. How does that work?
That's correct. So, I mean, think about it as like part of your team. Like you've got this team of people, and they're like teammates, and they have a very specialized function and things they do, and they communicate with each other. However, we do want to have humans involved in the process to kind of oversee it, make sure to interpret the results. There's things humans know that these models probably can't. They can probably know 95, 98% of what's going on, but then we need humans to kind of interpret, take a look at it and confirm what's going on or make adjustments. So just think of it as part of the team. And yes, they share information both with other agents and then other people, right? Humans. So.
Give me a real world example of how this plays out in an enterprise.
Yeah. So one of our customers is a large manufacturer of off-road equipment. They sell throughout the United States. They have like 300 independent dealers that have their product, right? If you look at the old way, the way they did things were essentially the dealers would, provide guides. Here's what we need on, this is what we want on our lot, and this is what we need you to replenish. They really took the guidance of what the dealers wanted and fulfilled it, right? So we like to call it a push model, right? The manufacturer's making it and pushing it to them based on what they say. And the manufacturer had some tools, Excel-based, some other tools to understand that demand and to make sure they could manufacture to it, right? So our solution comes in, we have a model, our models and our AI agents, we capture information, the product catalog, geographic information is kind of the basic. And then from there, sales and inventory data. We like to get 2 years of data to see seasonality and all that, but we can get by with less. And then as well as inventory. And then what we do is we'll reconstitute demand based on, there's lots of times there's stock outs. You just can't use sales to drive your forecast because sales is not a complete picture. We reconstitute demand and then look at that at each of the different locations, every zip code, every dealer. And then also based on other data elements, say, for example, market share data, competitor information, weather events, promotions, all those have an impact on demand, right? So we take a look at that, and then we will understand demand, provide recommendations of what inventory you need to have at each and every dealer to have the highest par possible. Remember, we talked about product.
Yeah.
We want that to be 95, 98, 99% par. So a customer goes in, they're going to have what they're looking for, or a substitute, or something within their time frame to satisfy them. So the par metric I talked about is core to all these algorithms and everything we do. And then we'll recommend inventory to the dealer, the manufacturer will. We're not saying, hey, you must take this, right? So it's a conversation. Most manufacturers have territory managers, regional sales managers, where it's a conversation with the dealer saying, hey, this is what our data is showing. We're recommending this product mix, and this is what we should replenish to you, on a monthly basis or whatever, weekly basis. And that's how we work. We work at a collaborative solution with the dealers to have the right inventory in stock.
So is there an example maybe where the dealer's thought process, their feelings, their gut instinct was off from what the data showed?
Yeah. So, for example, lots of times some dealers like certain product categories, or they know things, so they want to sell those. And they don't want the full line of equipment that manufacturer has. So we're already shutting down any sort of revenue or sales to those other products that they don't want to stock for whatever reason, whether their comfort level, whether they don't think it's going to sell, et cetera. So we try to provide the whole picture. They can make the decisions in conjunction with the manufacturer about what to stock. So I don't know if that explains it to you in a good way, but there's sometimes preconceived ideas of what to carry in stock, which we find is definitely not, because we have data showing, listen, you can sell 10 more of these things but you just don't have them in stock, right? The market's selling them, right? So anyway.
Yeah, it always reminds me of that schema from World War II where engineers would, when airplanes were coming back from battle, right? Engineers would look over the body, and where there are the most holes in the fuselage, they would armor, right? then they suddenly realized that it was where there were the planes that were coming back, right? That had it was the opposite. Is that the planes that were going down were being hit in those critical areas, and they weren't seeing it, right? So they never had the data to know that they shouldn't be armoring the areas with the most damage because those planes were making it back. It was what they were missing, right?
So, Greg, that's a good point. I just want to point out one thing that kind of maybe is similar to what you're saying. The other thing, so remember I talked about that par score. Let's say that dealer in rural America is 84% par. So they have with the products they have an 84% probability of making the sale. The opposite of that's true too. It means they have a 16% lost sales. So right off the bat, we know by locations what the lost sales opportunity are because you don't have the right products in stock. And that's eye-opening for a lot of people. We've had analysts, really smart analysts that know the space, look at it and they say, it's so refreshing. You guys measure right up front the lost sales. They say, we don't know any other solution, like system inventory management thing that does that. So we're really taking the consumer's view and trying to say, hey, are we taking everything into account and minimizing lost sales, right? So as you're a customer, you're going to be satisfied when you walk into a store or go online or whatever it is, right?
That really is an astonishing way to look at the whole optimization chain,
It's
supply
from the
chain.
consumer's perspective, absolutely, yeah.
So what has surprised you most about this AI revolution? What has shocked you?
Greg, the speed at everything's running, you've heard this probably lots of times, but it changes rapidly. We're always learning. We always question ourselves saying, well, what are we missing? And it feels like you're not running fast enough, right? So just the speed of this, I would say, was the key thing.
Yeah, I always worry if I take a weekend off. I always feel like Monday morning I didn't study for the mid-exam, and it's coming at 11 a.m. here right at me, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what breakthroughs did they have this weekend that I would need to know about?
Absolutely.
You know what amazes me most about your story is that with AI, you had the ability to create a perception of the customer, right? Mm-hmm. Where you created it and it's accurate, and that's very hard for humans to do, right? That you could create a projection, a perception of what that experience is like for the consumer, which would allow you to increase and optimize your offering to avoid lost sales. To me, that's just incredible from where we've been and where we're going.
Yeah, Greg, and so we're really focused on what is the consumer looking for? How does that translate into the PAR metric, or what inventory you carry and what locations? But the other side of this too is once we apply those algorithms, like for the first few weeks working with a company, we run their data through our models and we come back and say, listen, here's how we would deploy inventory. And guess what? You've got 35, 40% unproductive inventory. You don't need all this stuff, right? So that's eye-opening to people. And they say, there's no way you can reduce inventory 35% and still achieve these sales. And I say, with our models, you can. This is what we're showing, right? So and that actually drives a lot of the business case, right? In terms of reduction of working capital and inventory, and space and warehouses and all this stuff. So hopefully that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. And I think that's another point that's often overlooked is how capital gets locked in unproductive inventory, as well as just the physical plant, what you need to produce. And if you can get higher sales per square foot, that's a big part of the game. And inventories, unproductive inventory is the big killer of many businesses that don't understand that and can't function in a world where every cent counts.
And Greg, our manufacturing customers, so we're providing really great understanding of demand, both not now, but 12 months, 18 months in the future, we can forecast into the future. What does that mean in terms of your retail or dealer locations, any depots or places you store inventory? Also manufacturing. Using our PAR metric and autonomy, we provide guidance. Here's what you should make now, 6 months, 12 months in the future. Here's the mix. and it's all based on par. And our algorithms, we run every day, we run it as trends start happening. Let's say you need a smaller off-road equipment vehicle, we'll start seeing that very quickly and they can adjust quickly. So it's not like sometimes these things run once a week or they look at it monthly or something. We're really on it in terms of seeing trends and how does that impact your products, your finished goods, and what you make. So,
and again, AI allows for that real-time optimization, which is phenomenal. I interview people from around the world, and it's impacting that one aspect is impacting so much stuff. I mean, with AI now, for instance, in financial services, you could optimize a portfolio instantaneously as the market evolves all day long. I mean, that's the killer app for financial services. Let me end by shifting gears for a second and ask you a little bit about what it's like to work in a startup at this point in your career, where you've had so much experience in corporations and larger organizations.
Yeah, so it's funny, actually, although I have worked in larger companies or, medium-sized companies, I've done several startups, like new businesses, new offices. I was in Japan, helping start a new practice there. So I have done startups, but in larger organizations. So it kind of provides that safety, I guess.
Right.
But yet all the same kind of things that a startup does in terms of you're constantly tweaking your message. You're always hiring people, right? You always have an idea who the people we need for our team. Because when you're growing 20, 30, 50% a year, you need to be constantly hiring and getting great talent. So I think I had, a really good experience in my career with that. And then the startup just brings it to another level. I haven't done it yet with, VCs, but now I am, right? So we have some really impressive investors that are backing us. But what I would say also is, in a corporation, you kind of have boundaries of what you can do and approvals you need to get. That kind of goes out the door mostly with startups. It's, pretty much rapid fire, aim, shoot, right? And you do have to coordinate with the other co-founders, but, we have our lanes we swim in, right? So, but that's, you have more freedom, but, also more responsibility, right, to achieve the results.
So how do you keep your energy up when you're growing at 20, 30, 50%? And it's this startup pace, startup mentality.
I think it's, I've been, like this morning I was up at 6 a.m. doing my spin biking class. You got to stay healthy, right? Everyone out there, you got to keep your health has to be
What kind
great.
of spinning do you do?
Well, the spin, get on the indoor cycle bike, right?
Yeah, do you do classes or do you do Peloton?
It's classes. It's a very tight group of people. We all, it's obviously more like a social hour. You get together and, tell what happened and jokes. But at the same time, you're getting your heart rate up to 70% of max, right? So,
well, my firm is big. Throughout my firm, Peloton is a very big. I do Peloton. We have a gym next door to the studio where we have 3 Peloton bikes for this.
I like Peloton, but I would miss the social aspects of
truly.
Class. So that's what's, is the stickiness for me to keep doing it and the health benefits. And then I got an Oura ring too. I mean, oh my gosh, my sleep's improved a lot.
Really?
So I would recommend that to other entrepreneurs and just, everyone in general, just, get enough sleep, right? So.
Well, it's been a great conversation. I really admire what you're doing. You have the backstop of all those Georgia Tech PhDs and building out these algorithms and agentic agents that are going to help to become more successful, the clients that you serve. So congratulations, great conversation.
Thanks, Greg.
And we'll make sure to keep an eye on you and come back in the future and get an update of how quickly you've grown.
Hey, if anyone wants to learn more, please go to pullogic.ai. So you can see our latest updates.
Great conversation and best of luck.
Thanks, Greg. I appreciate it.
Take care.
This podcast is a production of Gregory FCA. If you enjoyed our discussion today and want to continue exploring the transformative power of AI, please check out more episodes and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.